Hi, it's Wendy here. Now, today I want to tell you about something that got me into a little bit of hot water over the last 24 hours. It really started a few months ago. One of the reasons why I threw my hat in the ring to be a politician with Reform UK, albeit all I am is a lowly town councillor, but I believed that even at that level, my responsibility was to make sure that the people of my town, Alsager, would get good value for money from the precept, which is the element of the council tax, which goes to the local town council. I think we are taxed far too heavily in the UK. I think we all feel that way. But there is always an argument about how much taxation you should levy on a local population to run things like the allotments, the public toilets, public gardens, and so on and so forth. And certainly where I live, a lot of those are run very successfully and very well. Nevertheless, over the last few years, that element of council tax, which goes to the local council, has been increasing. Sometimes it's 5%, sometimes it's 10%. And as a local town council, we don't have a limit, we don't have a lid on it like you do if you are a councillor in a borough or a county council. So I take it very seriously, my role, to keep a lid on that, to make sure that in terms of our budget and our expenditure, we're keeping costs down for residents, because obviously it's residents who are going to be footing the bill. Now, as I was thinking about this whole issue, it actually cropped up yesterday at a meeting, and I got a bit of flack. Surprise, surprise. And the reason that I got flack was because one of the other councillors said to me that 50p a week, which represents 5% of the, for a Band D property, that's 5% of an increase, for example, over the year. And 50p a week is nothing. Now, that may well be true, but if you add up those 50p's over time, they increase, and you're suddenly talking about £1, £2, £5. And before you know it, your council tax has gone from being fairly reasonable, £50 a month, suddenly you're now paying £500 a month. And we've all seen that across the UK. I was thinking about, why is it that we find it easy to spend other people's money? And I've come up with a number of reasons, and I'd really like to know whether you think these reasons are also valid. Number one, you haven't earned it through blood, sweat and toil. If you're able to spend somebody else's money or utilise somebody else's money, it's very likely that it's because it's come through a taxation route that you as an elected representative are then able to access and spend. You may well be spending it very wisely, you may be very careful about it, but you're not going to have, number two, an emotional connection to how it was gained. And I think that's really important. Number three, it's been through a kind of, could I call it a washing process? A government laundrette process? In other words, the government, whether that's local government or national government, has taken that money from that individual, from the resident, legally, and perhaps sometimes people would argue not legally, but nevertheless, it's gone through an official channel. And that channel has somehow kind of desensitised the end user from the route that the money has travelled in order to be in their bank account rather than in the resident's bank account. Number four, you have been given the permission to spend it as a local elected representative. I have been given the permission to spend your money. And yet it's not put like that, is it? We don't word it like that. We basically say that as a town councillor, I have the responsibility to look after that precept and to make sure it's spent wisely. But nevertheless, we have to recognise that I have got permission effectively to gather your money and to spend it on your behalf. Number five, it's not a proportion of your income. It's not a proportion of my income. Now, what I mean by that is that I don't know what proportion of your income that tax represents. I don't know whether 50p a week actually is a lot of money for you. If you haven't got much disposable income, you might be watching all the pennies and pounds. I remember 30 years ago when I had a very young family and I was bringing up my two young boys, I did not have any spare money. Every week I had to look in my purse and make sure that I had some money for, the necessities. I really understand what it's like not to have much spare cash. And actually 50p a week, to some people, it really does make a difference. Number 6, as an elected representative, I don't know what you as the taxpayer have had to sacrifice to be able to pay your taxes. Because what I don't know is, I might assume that everybody can easily pay their taxes and they still have money left over for things like cars and holidays and meals out and, having a nice lifestyle. But for many people, paying their council tax, paying income tax, it's automatically comes out of their accounts. It's automatically deducted in the case of income tax, but in the case of council tax, you may have set up a standing order or a direct debit. So it's automated. Now, what is it that you are not having because that money is going directly to local government? What is it you're choosing that you can't have because you haven't got that money anymore? And I think sacrifice, when it comes to taxation, is a very, very important question that we should be asking. What is it that people are sacrificing in order to make sure that their taxes are paid? Number 7, I think elected representatives, rightly so, they've been elected by a proportion of the local population. They've won the election fair and square. Good enough, good for them. But they then believe that the responsibility has passed to them to spend that money. Well, I think legally, technically, that is the case. They have been. The local population have said, yes, we want you, Wendy, to represent us. We want you to be on that town council, and therefore we hand over to you an element of responsibility in being wise and prudent about how you spend that taxation. And I take that responsibility very seriously. And actually, I believe all the other councillors I work with right now also take that responsibility seriously. But I think that there is a challenge that we mustn't forget here, which is that just because I have the responsibility to spend the money, it doesn't mean I have the automatic right to make assumptions about how that money was gained in the first place. And I don't think I should make the assumption that I can nudge it up every year, even by inflation, because you as the resident are suffering with inflationary pressures through many other ways. For example, the cost of milk has gone up, petrol varies actually a lot in price. That's not a great example. Let's talk just, energy. We know how much energy costs have gone up. So these things are affecting the pound in your pocket. They're affecting the money in your bank. And I don't feel as an elected representative that I should be saying, give us a bit more. Let me have a little bit more from your bank account, just so that I can buy some nice planters or, paint the toilets a new colour. I don't feel that is morally right. And then the final reason why I think that many elected representatives have this almost a kind of mismatch or a kind of feeling that the numbers almost don't make any sense to them is because the numbers are so high. And I think this is one of the other issues, is that we are dealing with budgets that are multi-million pound budgets. Now, if you've never run a business where there are a number of zeros on the profit and loss or on the balance sheet, you won't understand how these numbers look or feel in real life. You may have managed your own budget, you might have had a good salary, but it's probably likely to be in the hundreds of thousands rather than in the millions. And getting used to that size of budget, getting used to the number of zeros on the balance sheet, the numbers I think seem overwhelming. And I think a lot of politicians, whether they are local or national, actually feel rather overwhelmed looking at some of these numbers. And as we know, in every day, the news, we hear of the incredible waste that is going on at national level. 3 billion here, 35 billion there. That's just Chagos. But I think it's really important that we recognise that this has an impact on the residents, our neighbours, our friends, the people who live in our local communities. Senator Everett McKinley Dirksen, who was an American senator who was born in the 19th century and died about 1969, he famously said, "A billion here, a billion there, and pretty soon you're talking real money." Have a think about it. Speak to you soon.